There's a book I'm going to be talking to you about today, so please stick around and watch the damn video. Hey guys, so today I'm going to talk to you about a book that I read recently. But before I dive into that, I wanted to tell you that I have read lots of short stories before by Kurt Vonnegut, and he's a really funny writer, satirical, dark humor, everything that you could love about a person. Like, I don't want to call him a science fiction writer because he's not really one, even though he has lots of science fiction themes in there, like time travel and shit like that. But I wanted to tell you that the first two books I actually got from him were from a public library, and they were $1 each, so $2 for two books that are pretty great. Hocus Pocus being one of the novels he wrote in his later career, and A Man Without a Country, which is a collection of speeches and like lectures for college schools and shit. It was pretty cool. It actually blew my mind because he talked about things like when to use a semicolon, and I agree with him. Semicolons only suggest to the reader that you went to school. They don't mean shit. And when I'm writing, I don't like to use semicolons. I prefer to use a dash and sometimes just break the fucking sentence with a dot and that's it. You know, a short sentence like, for instance, and so it did, dot. Instead of just adding a fucking semicolon. I don't know. It really blew my mind because it opened my perspective into different ideas on how to write characters, how to write a story. Should we focus more on plot than the character, or be it you write a fucking story in a character development kind of style, as opposed to writing it in a plot development kind of story. So this book I want to talk to you about is called Bluebeard, and this one blew my socks away. I won't lie. Much like everything he writes, right? But this one was the shit. This one I got it from Barnes and Nobles. I could have got it from Amazon way cheaper, right? Like probably $12 new, or if I had bought a used copy, probably $9. But I wanted to get it quick, you know. I wanted to read something from him that was, you know, like already in my hands that I didn't have to wait for because I had nothing to read. I had already read all of the Haruki Murakami books and short stories that I bought. So I got this book from Barnes and Nobles for $17 plus tax. And what intrigued me was the back cover. I know many people don't like to read the back covers because they don't tell much about the story, and sometimes they actually blow things out of proportion in a way that, you know, like they don't really describe the story that you're gonna read. They actually tell you shit that, I don't know, like blurbs that are meant to sell more copies. But this one was spot on with the book. What intrigued me was the fact that it's a fake memoir about an artist named Rabo Karabekian. When I actually got home and started reading the book, you know, I sat down and I opened it. I couldn't drop it. I had to read it that same day. It could have taken me, I don't know, it took me around 2.5 hours, maybe 3 hours to go through the whole book. But I didn't want to finish it. I didn't want to finish it because it was good, you know. I felt connected with the characters, with Silse Berman. I forgot the other character that's Rabo Karabekian's friend, but you know, like the way the story is constructed, like he takes you through his daily life through the span of a couple months in his big ass mansion, and thanks to Silse Berman, he starts contemplating about his past life. You know, like what has led him to that certain point in his life where he's an angry, grumpy, grouchy kind of man in a mansion with lots of money, lots of art, expensive stuff, yet feels so alone in his life. Like in the book, they describe him, he's described as a very pale person without any kind of color in his life, which is kind of ironic. Ironic in the sense that he's an artist, and for fuck's sakes, artists have lots of color in them, even though they're not showing them, right? You could have a stoic ass face and not be showing your emotion, but the development of the book, 10 out of 10. If there's any book that you are interested in reading by Kurt Vonnegut, I'd say go for it, but I would say first go with Bluebeard because it's a great introduction to Kurt Vonnegut's writing style, even though it's developed in a very different way or in a different manner than all of his other stuff. You could also go for the short stories. I have the giant book of short stories, everything that he ever published. That one was like 35 bucks in Amazon. Probably 45, I don't remember the exact price. But there's even tinier books like Welcome to the Monkey House, which is a small book. You can get it for 15 bucks, maybe 17 at Barnes& Nobles. And that's a great introductory material that you can use to start getting into how he writes and stuff. It's actually a great way to get into how he writes. If you want to go for it, I would say buy Bluebeard first. I don't want to spoil more of the story. I could talk more about the story, right? But it's one of those books you just have to go get and read it. There's no other way around it, really. I later learned about the book that is actually based from that old folklore story from France, in which there's a protagonist keeping something hidden and secret from other people. And in the book, Rabokarvekin, I mean, these are spoilers, right? He has a potato barn and he's hiding something that he does not want anybody to see. And there's a development of that in itself, the idea of like an artist hiding parts of himself. I know how that feels in a sense because I like to write, I like to draw, I like to paint, I like to do a lot of shit, and I keep lots of things to myself, not necessarily bottling them up, but like sometimes writing is just a way that you write about shit that you cannot freely express to the public or to random strangers. As a matter of fact, recording videos like this is pretty fucking hard for me. It's not that I have low self-esteem, it's just opening up to people. Like, I have a hard time looking at the camera, and I can relate to Ravo Karabekian, the protagonist of this story, or this book, this novel, in that sense. But just the growth of the character, I mean, you can be introverted much like me and still have the audacity, the guts, the willpower to let others see your art, your craft. I think it's very important for artists, writers, painters, poets, whatever the fuck you are, to go on and read this book because it actually gives you a glimpse, even though it's fictitious, it still gives you a glimpse of, as to what your life could potentially become or what your life could not become, if you keep yourself in check. It's pretty cool. The stories, the way I like this narrative way of that in which he writes. Like in the book of Slaughterhouse-Five, he mentions on Stuck in Time, and he starts backtracking in time, explaining different things that happen. Is like retrospective. Like he diverts from the main focus, and then he manages to tie it up and make it the focus of the story because he develops the character. And he does the same with every single fucking character in the story, like he explains a little and then he goes back and explains a lot. And he attaches it to the main story and glues it perfectly. Like the unison of those things is something spectacular. I don't want to give away what happens in the end or what happens that's pivotal in the short story. I think it's a short story. I mean, the font size and everything, it feels clunky, right? It feels like a big book, but like I said, you read it so quick. It just flies by. Like, I don't know, within 10 minutes I had already read 20 pages and I was just blown away by the easiness. Like, it's hard to find books that you actually sit down and just, you like lose track of time and you read a lot already. I read it in, like I said, like in 2.5 hours, maybe 3, but I broke it into sections. Like, I would sit down in the living room, read for 1 hour, I'd go smoke, eat, watch some YouTube videos, and I'd repeat the cycle. Go sit down maybe in my bed, and I keep reading. It's just one of those books that flies by really quickly. And you enjoy it a lot, and you keep a lot of the information, like you retain a lot of the information in your mind, and it helps you, like if you're contemplating about writing a story or something, it helps you view the process of writing a story in different ways, much like every other book of his, maybe Haruki Murakami as well. And if you're Latin American or know Spanish as a second language or first language, Julio Cortázar, Juan Rulfo, Borges, all of those guys, like they have this very distinctive style of writing. You could even claim that Kurt Vonnegut is actually a postmodernist writer because of the way that he writes. Like postmodernism is supposed to have or to contain a lot of satirical events. Not too serious. The structure is like, fuck the structure. I'm gonna create a new structure. I'm not gonna follow the conventional ways in which we were taught to write and read and all this other stuff. That's why we could claim that Kurt Vonnegut, in like his art, his writing style, is a postmodernist kind of book. Mind you, this book also focuses like on the emotions of the character a lot, which is pretty interesting. I don't want to say it's impressionistic, but for the sakes that he's an artist, it's a fictitious memoir, like I've said already. But just for the sake that Ravo Karavekian is an artist, I would say that it's an impressionistic with post-apocalyptic now, with postmodernist tendencies in it. It's pretty good. As a literary movement, I love postmodernism. Anything Dave Foster Wallace, Thomas Pynchon. I could say also that anything sci-fi is like a subgenre of postmodernism. You know, it's pretty dope. You should read it. And I think that's it for this video. Probably next time I'll try to be more composed, look more at the camera, have a better script for you guys, and talk more in depth about the things. Although I'm contemplating also just making a PowerPoint presentation and just talk about it, you know, riff off from it, create like a lecture for you. Not that I want to teach you anything, I just want to share my idea on this book, and I believe that you guys should know a little before you actually go and spend the dough on a book. But this is one of those which you should not regret spending the money. To show you my little stack of Kurt Vonnegut, you know, just so you know I'm not fucking lying to you. So that's it. I hope to see you in the next video.